Really excellent analysis here by Glenn Ford at Black Agenda Report. Highly recommend checking out that website. As I say, news, commentary, and analysis from the Black Left. The title of this Glenn Ford article is The Squad Won't Fight Pelosi and Corporate Power. For the first time in this century, significant numbers of young people of all races are experiencing raw hatred for the Democrats, denouncing the Squad for collaborating with the oligarchy. The most volatile elements of the left, Democrats have finally understood that you can't oppose corporate duopoly rule while living in the oligarch's outhouse. The former Sandinistas brought in the new year loudly demanding that the Squad, the handful of Democrat reps that style themselves as the progressive cutting edge of Congress, refused to support Nancy Pelosi for Speaker of the House unless the 80-year-old millionaires, 100 millionaires actually, and corporate bagwomen agreed to submit Medicare for All to a full House vote. A vote on Medicare for All will prompt a national conversation on guaranteeing health care in the middle of a pandemic, wrote former Bernie Sanders press aide Breonna Joy Gray. Roll call tally will show the country who really supports it, not just rhetorically, but in practice. Then we can hold our representatives accountable. I completely agree with Breonna Joy Gray's analysis there. The goal of the exercise was to expose and embarrass those lawmakers that pretend to back legislation favored by nearly 90% of Democrats and 70% of all Americans, but who always buckle to Pelosi's corporate discipline. Gray, Dr. Cornel West, Movement for People's Party National Coordinator Nick Brana, NFL player Justin Jackson, and podcaster Katie Halper, Crystal Ball, Kyle Klinsky, and Jimmy Dore held a Force the Vote town hall to compel the Squad to act as the people's operatives in the legislative bowels of the beast. As it turned out, Rep. AOC and her leftish congressional cohorts chose to serve as their first corporate line of defense, against the Force the Vote strategy, originally conceived by Jimmy Dore. I wouldn't say originally conceived by him, but he's kind of made it, prominent, brought it into the limelight. I think we could probably go back and find other people, but he was definitely, one of the most kind of vocal. AOC threw up flack like a veteran corporate dissembler, tweeting that she and her allies had won a great concession from Pelosi to exempt Medicare for All from pay-as-you-go. House were requiring big money bills to identify enabling revenues before consideration for passage. PAYGO was put in place by Pelosi in 2019 to demonstrate that Democrats were fiscally responsible, continuing Barack Obama's second-term quest for a grand bargain with the GOP. Progressives in the House have won a rules change that would allow Medicare for All, Green New Deal, or other big-ticket agenda items to be exempted from PAYGO. Ocasio-Cortez tweeted, "This was a necessary step in opening the way for it." But of course, the gesture was merely a reshuffling of marked cards. Jimmy Dore responded to an AOC defender at The Intercept. Unwittingly, what he's doing here is making the case for Force the Vote, because now we've got rid of the hurdles that would stop it, so we can just go do it. AOC was pretending to be part of a movement, but was in reality still running cover for Nancy Pelosi. Justin Jackson, the LA Chargers running back whose mother died from breast cancer when he was a child, unable to afford adequate treatment, refused to accept the corporate logic. You have politicians that are saying they are supporting us for a fight, but when we actually come up with a strategy to do it, now it's, I can't do that particular thing, doesn't make any sense. What other time than now? There's a pandemic raging right now. I mean, again, yes, when would there be more political capital to get a vote on Medicare for All if not during a pandemic when tens of millions of people have lost their health care because they have lost their jobs? I mean, completely agree with Justin Jackson. They're like, if not now, when? Jesus Christ. Ocasio-Cortez retreated into a weird combination of corporate rationalization and feigned victimhood. To be 100% honest, she tweeted, it was hard during this to be targeted plus marred as some sellout enemy of the people over a late tactical disagreement over one floor vote. Also a bummer to see figures excuse comments like F her and F anyone who protects her. That's not tone, that's violence. Oh my God. Really? Again, it's pretty ridiculous that she condemns that as violence when in reality, not fighting for Medicare for all as much as possible is violence. Literally, tens of thousands of the people in the U.S. die each year because they don't have health care, as well as however many countless people go bankrupt. It's disgusting. That's the real violence. People not having health care in the richest country in the world. But that's what is supposed to happen when the faux insurgents act as corporate defenders. As Force the Vote advocates pointed out, yes, the death of 40 to 60,000 Americans a year due to lack of health care, 300 plus thousand plus COVID fatalities to date, is corporate inflicted violence on a horrific scale. AOC has endured only slights to her celebrity as payback for defending them indefensible. Boom, Glenn Ford dropping the knowledge bombs. I love it. In the end, AOC, newly elected St. Louis Congresswoman Cori Bush, and Barbara Lee voted to elect Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House for the fourth time after initially abstaining on procedural ballot and collapse. The squad had shrunken to 3 fingers of one submissive hand. It must be noted that back in 2005-06, when Pelosi was gearing up for her first successful run to be Speaker, she prevented Democrats from holding hearings on the Katrina catastrophe in fear of identifying the party too closely with black issues, and then forbade the Congressional Black Caucus and all other Democrats from attending Republican hearings on Katrina. All of the Black Caucus meekly complied with her dictate, except for Atlanta Rep. Cynthia McKinney, who was shunned by her fellow black congresspersons as a result. As Peter Gamble and I reported in the Black Commentator, Pelosi was able to convince the Congressional Black Caucus as a body to stand down in the face of a horrific crisis, the displacement of hundreds of thousands of residents of New Orleans. The Black Caucus's political irrelevance and impotence can be dated to that debacle. AOC and her squad are on the same path, and the slope is much steeper in the area of accelerating national imperial decay. In her self-pitying funk, the Bronx fashion plate and champion tweet, a rival of Trump in that regard, sounded no different than the standard "because Trump" Democrat blaming the outgoing orange menace for her own political cowardice. In a time when the Republican Party is attempting an electoral coup and trying to overturn the results of the election, this is not just about being united as a party. It's about being united as a people who have basic respect for the rule of law. Having nothing to offer their base, Democrats make Trump the excuse for the refusal to buck the corporate masters. What will they do when the orange org is finally gone? Gonna have to find a new boogeyman at that point, right? Whether it be, doubling down on, this anti-Russia rhetoric or anti-China rhetoric. Got to find the new boogeyman once after January 20th. Doubtless they'll blame the Russians. Just Glenn Ford's analysis is just so good. And a handful of outspoken left-wing activists, and as MSN dubbed the Force the Vote advocates, mainstream news, for undermining the smooth workings of American democracy. However, the exodus of the leftmost ranks of the Democratic Party have finally begun and will accelerate in the excruciatingly unending COVID-19 crisis as the post-COVID corporate economic order emerges with the full collaboration of the Democratic Party. The biggest benefactor of the New Year's revolt is the Movement for a People's Party, coordinated by Nick Brana, which vows to run a slate of congressional candidates 2022 and mount a presidential bid 2024. For the first time in this century, significant numbers of young people of all races, most of them unabashed Democrats only yesterday, it seems, are expressing raw hatred for the Democrats, who are richly deserving of the utmost contempt. Having witnessed and participated in the largest demonstration in the history of the United States in the past year, these young activists correctly see elections as only one aspect of politics. Indeed, the corporate monopoly has rendered electoral projects the narrowest, most circumscribed arena of U.S. political expression. Left political parties' electoral activity must be an extension of grassroots and street advocacy. COVID-19 ensured the demise of Trump and has laid bare the anti-people nature of racial capitalism and the corporate duopoly that serves the oligarchs. Pelosi and her Democrats have shown themselves to be one with the Republicans in enforcing the race to the bottom that capitalists have imposed worldwide and whose noose has been tightening in the U.S. for 2 generations. Medicare for All is anathema to both corporate parties because it would go far towards deprivatizing 1/6 of the U.S. economy, but just as importantly, would greatly diminish the precarity and desperation of workers who fear they must take and hold any job that provides health insurance. The oligarchy understands perfectly that its super profits are derived from super exploitation of the precarity stricken workers of the planet and on deepening desperation of its own workforce. It is with these forces that the Squad is collaborating through their subservience to Pelosi and the duopoly. God damn, like that last paragraph just so hard hitting and really gets to the root of the issue. I mean, Medicare for All is anathema to both corporate parties because it would go far towards deprivatizing 1/6 of the U.S. economy. Just as importantly, it would greatly diminish the precarity and desperation of workers who fear they must take and hold any job that provides health insurance. The oligarchy understands perfectly that its super profits are derived from super exploitation of the precarity stricken workers of the planet and on the deepening desperation of its own workforce. Damn. And then ending, I just wanted to read that again. It's just so on point. It is with these forces that the Squad is collaborating through their subservience to Pelosi and the duopoly. I mean, frankly, I don't know if you're being rational about it, how you could argue against Glenn Ford's reasoning here. I mean, just the title of the article says it all, and I don't, again, leave it down in the comment sections below if you disagree, but Squad won't fight Pelosi and corporate power. How do you see it? How can you justify it or view it any other way? And if you do, I seriously, please comment in the comment sections down below, and I'll link this article because, again, this Glenn Ford's analysis is amazing, as well as everybody that have come across it, Black Agenda Report, highly recommend their website as their sub-headline is News, Commentary, and Analysis from the Black Left. A great source, a great treasure. Glenn Ford, Margaret Kimberly, Danny Haifong, anybody else that's involved, that their work that I've come across is just excellent. Subscribe for more content. Leave your comment sections, or leave your comments in the comment sections down below. Peace, much love, all power to the people.